Good afternoon. I'm Doug Marker, Second Vice President of the City Club. Welcome to another outstanding City Club program. Today we focus on the changing demographics of Oregon's population, how they are and will be changing the face of the future. Our guest speaker today is Dr. Jess Carreon, President of Portland Community College. First, some announcements. Next Friday, March 22nd, join us for a program entitled The Branding of Portland, Beyond the Sales Pitch. The program will feature Randy Gregg, reporter for The Oregonian, Chris Riley, Director of Global Marketing with Wyden and Kennedy, Ethan Seltzer, Founding Director of the Institute for Metropolitan Studies at Portland State University, and Sohrab Vasugi, CEO of Ziba Design. We will return to the Multnomah Athletic Club for this program, so please note the change in location. For those of you who may not be aware, the City Club's website offers access to research reports, past club program presentations, upcoming events, and membership information. Check us out at www.pdxcityclub.org. We've reached the end of the second week of March, and we're only about halfway to our goal of 100 new members. Members, please help by recruiting new members, and guests here today, how about making it official and joining the City Club? Our member host seated at the head table is Nikki Lynch, member of the program committee and financial advisor with Merrill Lynch. She will ask the first question of our speaker. Following Nikki's question, as always, we will open the program to questions from City Club members in the audience. Please line up by behind the microphone on the floor, right over there, even before Nikki is finished, so that we have time to ask as many questions as possible. Please identify yourself as a member of City Club and ask your question in 30 seconds or less. Broadcast of City Club programs this quarter is made possible in part by corporate underwriting from the following: Portland General Electric, CH2M Hill, and Providence Health System. We're very grateful for their support. To today's speaker, anyone living in Oregon must be aware of the changing faces of our population. The increasing diversity of Portland and Oregon's communities is a remarkable change, and we expect this trend to continue. We can't predict what our communities will look like a decade from now, but we know that we will be a population of many more colors, languages, age differences, and cultures than the Oregon those of us who lived here knew 10 or 20 years ago. Our speaker today, Dr. Jess Carreon, is president of Portland Community College. Dr. Carreon has been studying and thinking about the implications of these changes in demographics for the past decade. He was appointed recently as president of Portland Community College, actually in July of last year, and prior to his coming to Portland, he was president of the Rio Hondo Community College District in Whittier, California. He has already become an active member of our community, having been appointed to the Portland Chamber Board, the Business Education Compact Board, and the Hispanic Chamber Board, among other activities. He also serves on the executive committee of the board of the American Association of Community Colleges. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Carreon to the Portland City Club.
Thank you, Doug. I appreciate the kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, I am deeply honored to be here today, and I appreciate the opportunity to share some thoughts with you. But before I get going, I would be totally remiss if I didn't recognize members of my board of directors for the Portland Community College District. I'd like to first hold your applause and the hoots and hollers and yays until I'm done, please. Let me start off with the Vice President of the Board, Doreen Margolin. Doreen? Member of the Board, Harold Williams. Member of the Board, Bob Palmer. Member of the Board, Dan Anderson. Member of the Board, Norma Jean Germond. Ladies and gentlemen, these are members of the Portland Community College Board. And along with them, I have a variety of staff and has nothing to do with their evaluations, not whatsoever. So, but I appreciate their support today. Thank you very, very much. I want to thank the City Club for this invitation, but in particular Betsy Warner and Susan Hauser, who helped to make this possible for me being here today. Why did I come to Portland? It was going to take a lot for me to move, frankly, because I was very happy, very comfortable, doing some exciting things. But I got to tell you, it was the right move. I feel it's a good fit, and I'm really excited to be here. Portland Community College, for those of you that may not know, because sometimes on the local level we tend to kind of keep our eyes focused, is a nationally recognized institution of higher education. It's considered one of the 10 best in the United States of over 1,200 community colleges throughout the United States. I sit on the American Association of Community Colleges Board of Directors, so I talk to my colleagues from around the country. So, me being me, I don't hang out with second-rate operations. This is a first-rate operation. It's first class, and I've got to tell you, I'm deeply, deeply proud of being the president of this organization. Why I was asked to be here today was to make a few comments about a subject which I thought 10, 15 years ago only people who were really, really boring and didn't have anything to do would do, and that's review and assess and take demographic information and really kind of review various reports. Well, I got to tell you, I'm fascinated by the subject now, and after reviewing over the last 10 years reports from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Department of Labor, the Census Bureau, and various departments in various states, the curiosity has peaked because there's something happening in this country and in all sectors of this country that is so obvious that I think it's being missed, and especially by public policymakers, which is deeply concerning me and others, especially in the education community. The demographics that are shifting in this country are not just shifting in the 4 big states where we think they are diverse. It's occurring all over the country. The change is one in which it's a national trend, and it's anchored by immigration. Immigration is the single greatest factor that is creating the demographic shift and the growth in the population over the next 25 to 50 years, and that trend continues today. Technology continues to change, and it is a factor and a fact of life that it anchors the development and the growth and prosperity of the knowledge economy. The workplace that you see today is not the same workplace that you saw in the year 1950. It is a much different workplace. It is much more technically oriented. It is much more diverse. It is much more volatile because it is impacted by global markets. It is much more social conscious because of the populations that are in the workforce. It is not uncommon today to see in many sectors that an ethnic woman is your boss. What a novel concept, huh? That's the way of the world. And for those who are having a difficult time with it, oh well. Healthcare. I happen to be on a board of directors of the 4th largest hospital in the previous job in LA County. The healthcare industry is flipped upside down. It's unbelievable what's happening there. But that's also precipitated, ladies and gentlemen, by the tremendous wave that we see going through the population, and I'll come back to that in a minute, the aging of our population. The economy, we used to simply worry about maybe what was happening around the corner or down the street or across the city. Today, we are impacted globally, especially on the Pacific Coast, the Pacific Rim that impacts us. Oregon is not a local economy. Oregon is not a state economy. Oregon is a global economy, whether we think it or not, whether we want to accept that fact or not. We must think globally, but we act locally and we strengthen our ties with our global partners. The demographic shifts that are taking place, let me go through this real quickly because for those organizations or groups that might want me to come and make a more in-depth presentation, I'd be happy to do that. But I'm going to move through this very quickly from the national to the state to the Portland metro area to PCC. On the national scale, you're looking at the wave that's moving through the country. No, not short, bald-headed guys. You're looking at the baby boomer generation. There are 75 million baby boomers in this country moving through this country like a huge wave. That's never occurred in this country before. There's no other cohort, ages 45 to 64 is where we're at now, but there's no other age cohort that even comes close to being this size. Will it impact education? It already has. Will it impact healthcare? It already has. Will it impact the economy? It already has. Will it impact the workplace? It already has. Keep that in mind. Ethnicity. The four big states, obviously, that people always talk about, California, Texas, New York, and Florida. People perceive that this country is diverse. It's diverse in pockets, but it's beginning to change dramatically throughout the country. Today, you go to Utah, for example, you can find slightly over 11,000 Asians living in Utah. Utah? Why Utah? They are second and third generation now moving out of the traditional areas that they might have done before. What you're going to see in this country is a shifting of the populations that have normally been in certain locales of this country outside of this country to other areas. What you're also seeing is a shifting of populations to the west and the south. The western part of the United States and the southern part of the United States within the next 10 years will have over 64% of the population of this country. Everything is shifting. The populations of Oregon, in like manner, will go up in the next 10 years by another 500,000 people, from about 3.4 to 3.9 million people, continuing to grow. The population in Oregon, which was predominantly white back about 50 years ago, has changed dramatically. The Hispanic population is now over 8%, the African American population over 2%, the Asian population over 5%. Go to Forest Grove. The Forest Grove elementary schools, there are 40+% of the student population today that are Hispanic. To the business community, I say to you, and I'll say it again over and over again until I sound like a broken record and I'll be like a cheap suit and you can't get rid of me. That is your workforce of the 21st century. You have to understand that they are not a pronoun, them. They are your workforce. Business, education, and government. It's critically important that the business community understand that government understand that, and that educators understand that. On a local level, as we come in more locally, 46% of the people in population of Oregon now live in the Portland metropolitan area. The Portland metropolitan area has changed dramatically itself. The population in this area, in Portland, the 45 to 50-year-old population in the last 10 years has jumped by 74%. Remember? The baby boomers moving through as a wave. The 55 to 59-year-old population is up by 54%. The ethnicity shift has been dramatic. It's gone up by 17%, so that from 1990, the ethnic diversity of the Portland metro area was 10%. Today it is 17%. The ethnic diversity, the population at Portland Community College is 23+%. Am I making these figures up? No. Is it a sign of good things or bad things? No, it just is. The average age of students at Portland Community College is 36 years of age. We have over 100,000 students. We have 3 main campuses with a 4th campus or a 4th center being built now. There are 4 workforce training centers. We serve over 1,500 square miles. It's considered one of the largest in the country. So we say age is changing. We say the diversity of our communities are changing. For business leaders who don't understand, or for legislators who don't understand, for public policy makers who don't understand, drive by the elementary schools, drive by the junior high schools, and drive by the high schools. The Oregon of 2002 does not look like the Oregon of 1952. And the Oregon of 2022 will not look the same. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Well, you have some people out there who have an attitude, and to them, I am dangerous because I'm a Latino with a $500 suit, give or take a couple of bucks, you know. a college education, and I can actually put two sentences together, right? I didn't even speak English until I was 5. My dad crossed over when he was 17 from Durango, Mexico. My mom was born in El Paso, Texas, went to the 10th grade. But that's what makes this country great, is somebody like myself coming from a family who wouldn't be considered 100 years ago as traditional, is now the president of one of the finest community college systems in the country. The workforce is beginning to look more and more like a non-traditional workforce, but in fact, it's becoming the traditional workforce. Ladies and gentlemen, that's one of the reasons that today, tomato ketchup is no longer the #1 condiment in the United States. What is? Salsa! On the surface, we can joke about things and we can smile and we say, oh, great, I have a Latino as my good friend, or an African American, or politicians want to take pictures with the diverse population. It goes well beyond that, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very serious matter, extremely serious matter. While terrorism is an absolute problem for us internally and externally, we must deal with it. While our healthcare system is clearly cracking under the weight of the changes that are taking place, we must deal with it. The prison system is dealing with populations that are growing by leaps and bounds. But the one area that is so blatantly obvious that is simply being missed is that the human resources that we have in this country are being squandered. And the key to the 21st century and the strengthening of this nation, and then the state of Oregon, and then the Portland metropolitan area, and then the communities we serve, is to strengthen the K through 16 public education system. Not because we're asking for a handout, because it's an important investment in the future of the state. It's an important investment in the future of the Portland metropolitan area, and it is the most important American thing that one can do. It is a national priority. Education is not an aside. It should be first as a priority. Why? Because where are the engineers going to come from? The educational system. Where are the biotechnicians going to come from? The educational system. Where are the doctors and lawyers going to come from? Where are the plumbers, the electricians going to come from? The educational system. It's critically important that we understand that. And hopefully, business will step up to the plate and be even more aggressive than it has been before, and says to the public, and says to the legislature, and says to the public policymakers, that's our workforce there in those elementary schools. That is our responsibility, not because we want to have bake sales and not because we want to make people feel good and sit around like a bunch of scouts and hold hands and sing songs, but it's the right thing to do, and it's an investment. It's not a cost of operation. What are some of the challenges that we're going to have to deal with? Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to replace an aging population. We're retiring at a breakneck speed. Remember that 75 million baby boomers I talked about earlier? It's moving through, and we're picking up speed in our retirement. They're going to have to be replaced. White males, as a portion of that workforce population, are decreasing over the next 20 years. And who are they being replaced with? Women and people of color in that workforce population. But even in bodies, it's not enough, and that is a serious dilemma for us. Technical skills are going to be in greater demand. It was just enough to have a high school education, and maybe not even a high school education 20 or 30 or 40 years ago. In the knowledge economy, that no longer works. And you've heard that time and time again, but it's reality. It's not a joke. It's serious. And if you're not on the information highway, you're going to be sitting on the roadside like a hobo, wondering what happened. So technical skills are critically important in the economy of the future. The ethnic populations in the state of Oregon are going to continue to grow and change. Is it a dilemma? Is it a problem? Absolutely not. This is what makes this country great. And it's not from a social standpoint, and I'm not sitting here saying, oh, let's all hold hands. I'm saying from a practical standpoint, the diversity of our country, the beauty of the various languages, everyone coming together creates what we know as the America of the 21st century. The academic and technical skills, another challenge that used to be enough 30 and 40 years ago in the workplace, are being added to by two more, social and intercultural. As the workplace changes, social skills are becoming much more critical to survive and to function and to prosper in the workplace of the 21st century, as are intercultural skills. People have varying language, people have varying cultural backgrounds. And I think the key to that is learning to respect those people that are in the workforce and the differences that they bring to the workforce. How do we respond as a community? Well, this might sound like a crazy idea or a novel concept or just stood too long in the sun without a hat. But this state needs to create an economic development strategy for the 21st century. It doesn't exist. If we shoot from the hip, day after day, year after year, biennium after biennium, we will see occur over and over and over again what has occurred over the last 6 months. Because there's no long-range plan. Do we know what the demographics are going to look like over the next 15 to 20 years? Absolutely. We knew what today's demographics were going to look like 20 years ago here, because we saw the change coming toward us. Do we have any idea of some of the changes that are taking place in the healthcare industry? Absolutely. Do we know what's happening with technology? Well, maybe not over the next couple of years, but we can surely assess the fact that it's going to change. The key is, do we look at our future, and does government, education, do they come together, government, education, business, and the community, and ask the question, what are we doing to prepare Oregonians and Oregon to deal with the future in a consistent, systematic, and organized fashion? The basic structure of Oregon, the economic structure, has changed dramatically over the last 30 years. This economic structure of Oregon today is not the same that it was, and it continues to shift. And to take that into account is critically important. And I submit to you that an economic development strategy laid out from a statewide perspective, bringing key components together, is critically important. And what will anchor that economic development strategy, you guessed it, the K through 16 public education system, because that's the human resources, that's the human capital, that's the engine that'll drive Oregon into the 21st century and make sure that it is stable, secure, and prosperous. We need to strengthen the K-16 system across the board. We need to create or strengthen alliances between business, education, and government. Not handouts, not, gee, we would like $500 for this scholar. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about strengthening relationships that are real relationships. I consistently know over the years that when there's discussion with public policy makers and they're talking about going out recruiting for jobs or bringing business into an area, who's always missing from the table? Education. Duh. Somehow it's being missed. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an important issue. Education must sit at the table, but I think it's important that educators don't ask to be invited. They simply say, we're going to be at the table because you need us and we need you. We are a part of a community that's a whole community. And we will provide that anchor that you need in the short and the long term. And that's critically important. And so for those business leaders out there who are getting to know me or who don't know me or who may not want to get to know me, I will be there, and our college, Portland Community College, is going to be extremely aggressive in making even more connections and better connections and stronger connections that we've even made in the past, and refining existing relationships, not only with business and education and government, but with the community, so that we understand who we're serving and how we're serving them. I think that business, education, and government, as I mentioned before, need to recognize that their workforce is not over in Washington. It's not over in Arizona. It's not over in Idaho. It's sitting there in Forest Grove. It's sitting there in Hillsborough. It's sitting in Portland Public Schools. And somehow I'm baffled by the mentality of we're going to cut our way to greatness. That seems like an oxymoron to me. The investments that we make today pay dividends. And I think for someone to lie on their deathbed and say to people, you know what, my greatest accomplishment was I was able to reduce government. I was able to shut down some schools. God, I feel good about that. Hello? Education is key to the future. And I think hopefully we learn from our mistakes. And yeah, I came from California, and California made some major mistakes and has made major mistakes. Why can't Oregon, that has a window of opportunity as things are changing, learn from the mistakes of other states and how it deals with its economy and how it deals with the strategic alliances between business, education, and government and how it deals with its changing population, specifically the limited English-speaking and non-English-speaking populations and the shifting of the population. Environment is important to Oregonians, and transportation is important. But I think what needs to be understood also is all of that is anchored by the human resources that activates every single industry in this state. And we must recognize that diversity is a strength. It's okay. And when I walk into a room, God, I love hearing people speaking different language. You know, I don't take that mentality, hey, what are you doing? You know, you're not a real American. I'm not sure what a real American is. A real American is someone who cares and respects. See, in my home, when I grew up, in the Carreon home, when you came through that door, no matter who you were shown respect. Bottom line, you were shown respect for who you were, and you were taken at your word as a person crossing through that door. And I think that's critically important. So it may anchor all the discussion about what it is to be a real American or whether people deserve to be supported in an educational system. It really comes down to how do we respect the communities that we serve. And if you're a business person, if you're a legislator, if you're an educator, if you're a community advocate, if you're really going to make a difference, if you're really going to care, just caring is just a part of it. Caring and not acting doesn't mean a thing. Because I hear a lot of people say, oh, I really care. And my response is, so what? If you care and don't act, then it doesn't mean anything. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, some of you probably thought that I was going to focus only on Portland Community College. But I will close by telling you that Portland Community College is the community's college. America's colleges are community colleges. The traditional role has been to transfer students to the four-year schools, but we do a variety of other things, and we are critically important to the development of the economy and the strengthening of the community. And ultimately, the role that we play in the community, the Portland Community College plays, is not one of education. It is one of ultimately helping to develop and strengthen the quality of life within the communities that we serve. It's a much bigger role than teaching people to read and to write and to compute. And that is a very noble responsibility that we have. And I can tell you from the short time I've been there that this institution, this faculty, these classified staff, these managers, led by a board of directors, are up to the challenge. And like some people perhaps during storms and challenges that are blowing like gale force winds, PCC will not turn downwind. We intend to turn and face those challenges head on and challenge the future because we're going to change lives. That's what we do, one person at a time. To regress a bit, what I mean by that, there was a professor at San Diego State many, many years ago, and then another one, Mr. Shannon at Grossmont College. Both of those people spent 30 seconds, pulled me aside one day and made a comment to me about wanting to suggest that I move on. You have no idea of the impact that had on my life. But that story is replicated day after day, evening after evening, week after week, at every educational institution throughout this state. Portland Community College will challenge the future and change lives. And ultimately, let me make sure we're clear, because I've heard educators say, well, if we get college degrees, it's to enrich the soul. If I'd said that to my father, he would have said, that's good. How much is that going to cost you? And how much are you going to make? And what does that translate into the amount of money you're going to make per hour? He was pretty practical. The educational system develops citizens of the world. But ultimately what it does, it creates a framework for work. Work defines communities, ladies and gentlemen, not college degrees. Because if you have a college degree and you're unemployed, now what? 75% of the population in this nation today, and that statistic has held steady for the last 40 or 50 years, do not have a BA degree. What does that tell you? But that population, that percentage is growing. And it's very, very important in a knowledge economy that 75% steadily drop. And that those people that don't have college education, that don't have advanced skills, that don't have technical skills, get those technical skills. And Portland Community College is ready and willing and able to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's really interesting and inspirational. And I guess my question really is along the lines of what you were just talking about, but more specifically in our state where unemployment is so high. If you could tell us maybe more specifically how Portland Community College is helping these unemployed people transition into new and better jobs.
One specific way in which Portland Community College is helping people to transition is we have a system of one-stop centers. And we work with various companies to help first identify, assess dislocated workers, and then retool them, retrain them, counsel them, and put them right back into the workforce. The training center that was visited by President Bush this past year was in Northeast Portland. And bottom line, my comment to the president was, hey, community colleges are here. They're America's colleges. They can not only train people initially, but they can retrain and put people back into the workforce. Portland Community College has been doing that for many years. Volcker, when it was first brought to, I think, 25 years ago, or when it was first brought to the Portland area, Portland Community College was critically important not only in bringing them here, but also in training of that workforce. Let me make sure you're clear. Portland Community College not only does technical training, but it identifies companies that are having difficulties, goes in and makes assessments and then trains those workers to either upgrade their skills or get them back into the workforce.
Tom Deering, a City Club member. I've read about a disturbing phenomenon that has been affecting some percentage of the poor immigrants to this country over the last perhaps decade, called downward assimilation, in which the second generation tends to lose the values of their parents who came here from countries that put high value on industry and responsibility and honesty, and because of the negative influence of some of the American schools, that is in the secondary schools. Now that, and I don't know whether that is whether that exists in Oregon or not, but it certainly exists in some parts of the country in which these children lose those values. They drift into the stratum of their high school that represents the poorest part. Often other people of non-immigrants of poor families get into the same sort of thing, and they become negative about education, they drop out, they quit studying, and they are the ones who are not educated that are then cut out of the potential to be in the economic mainstream. I wondered if that's something that you feel exists at all in Oregon. If it does exist, what can or should be done about it?
First and foremost, I'm sure some of that might exist, but the reality is, and I can go back to the time that I was a dean of students at a high school, and I'm sure the same is true. A vast majority of your kids are basically good kids. Sometimes we focus as a society, and we spend a lot of times in the media on making sure that we highlight those kids that are getting in trouble. As a dean of students, the vast majority of students that I ever dealt with, and I've talked to my colleagues over the last 25 years, are basically pretty straightforward kids. You're looking at one who's the coming in as a first generation, but my daughter is a very responsible young woman. I think you can say the same thing after the turn of the century, when the immigrants came from Europe. That there might have been a change there. I personally don't see that that's an issue. There's more of an issue of people having to perhaps work, to have to be sensitive to issues regarding the family, and so dropout rates may be affected in a much greater fashion by other factors other than the fact that some people just lose a sense of education. There's a myth that Latinos coming in from other countries are not interested or don't care about education. Not the ones that I know. The Hispanics that I know, the Latinos that I know, whether it's traditional first or second generation, are pretty much like everybody else. They want good schools, they want the children to do well, they want safe communities, they want good jobs. It's pretty straightforward. So I think if we pick out one component over another, I think we begin to nitpick. But if we look at the broad spectrum, by and large, students in our high schools do well, and I think our high schools, and I'm a tremendous supporter of public education and always will be. They do a pretty darn good job, given the diversity of the students, given the shifting populations, given the challenges they have with their funding mechanism, given the picking up speed of the retiring of the faculty and the changes that are taking place. Thank you for your question, sir.
Thank you very much for your talk. I'm Carol Witherell, member of City Club. You made a strong argument for practical and business reasons for supporting K through 16 education. Couldn't you also make a strong argument for social and civic reasons for investing in the preparation of all youth as thoughtful citizens who will be well informed and care about civic issues, and who will be able to elect and serve in a wise and thoughtful and responsible legislature that will fulfill the democratic contract of looking after the public good for all citizens?
Yes.
So,
next question. No, I think your point is, and maybe I need to make sure. My focus was on the practical investment in education, but absolutely, the one devastating thing that I've seen in states that's become commonplace is when you see art and music and theater and fine arts programs decimated at the elementary school, and speech teams no longer funded at junior high school or high schools because we don't have the funding. I think what you're also seeing now is beginning to see a reversal not only in the high schools, but I know at community colleges with the concept of service learning. Absolutely critical. Reading, writing, computing, languages are critically important, but if you remember back to what I said, not only are academic and technical skills critically important, but social and intercultural skills are going to be critically important for these students in the 21st century. And they're not only taught at home, but they're also something they need to be, I believe, a part of the overall humanizing process of the educational system of our country.
Jim Francisconi, past and future member of the City Club. Is that good enough to ask the question? Actually, before you got here, we had very powerful voices, some in this room, like Harold Williams and Gail Castillo, kind of prodding our moral and economic conscience. Adding you to the mix is going to be terrific for our community, so welcome. The question is, PDC is in the process of developing a new economic development strategy. So it's a two-part question. One is, are you involved in that process? And second of all, okay. And then second of all, when this plan is presented to the PDC Commission and then to the City Council, what should the role of the community college be in the City of Portland's economic development strategy?
Number one, we should be sitting at the table. I should be on to be blunt with you, I mean, that's why I think we hit it off. To be blunt, perhaps I should be on that, no, I should be on that council, to sit at the table, to bring to you the strength of the educational system the PCC has. We have the capability of training. See, just recruiting businesses is just one part of the picture, but not only, but retaining and strengthening them is a second part of the picture. Once the plan is presented, then I think it becomes very, very clear that Portland Community College has a variety of resources, it has an infrastructure, and has the capability. And if we don't have it, we have 16 other our sister colleges throughout the state that we can tap. And we have a network that we can tap, because ultimately it's not about economic development, it's not about education, it's about strengthening the community. And I think there's a variety of resources, and it comes back to my point, Councilman, that we're at the table, and we need to be at the table, education, business, and government, so that we're working as a team and we're creating a systematic change in the system. And the mentality has always been that we're left out in education. And so I'm glad you said that, because I just found out about that in the newspaper, and I was going to make a phone call and ask the question, gee, how come I wasn't invited? Can I go? So, I mean, you know, crash the party, I guess, is a much more straightforward approach.
Ann Bisgeyer, City Club member. As you so strongly stated, the need to support our public education system as it stands. So what is your feeling about school vouchers and the whole system there, and what that might eventually do to the public school system?
Well, you know, in our country, people have always had the choice to go to religious schools, to go to private universities, and there's a whole system of that. But let me make sure that you're clear. I've gone to both public and private schools. I've gone through the system of schools, and my growth and prosperity has been through the public schools of this country. What has anchored the growth and prosperity of this country has been the K through 16 public education system. So I will stand toe-to-toe. I will have a very lively discussion with people who support vouchers. They have the right to do that. But ultimately, the strength of our country is through our public education system. We water it down, we take a tremendous chance of watering down a system that has been working. Does it have some difficulties? Sure it does. Somebody be lying to you if they said it didn't. But to simply say, let's throw it out and start, who has a better idea? Other countries, when you talk about other countries, what do they want? They want a lot of things from the United States, but what do they envy? They envy our educational product. And what is it anchored by? It's anchored by the K-16 public education system in this country.
Carolyn Timmerman, City Club member. What programs does Portland Community College have for high school dropouts and for the unwed mothers and all that?
We have a program over at, I think it's Central, Jan? Where is it? Southeast. We have programs at our Southeast Center, yes, specifically for high school dropouts. I believe we have the largest high school outside of the regular high school system in the state of Oregon, where we take students who either are displaced or for some reason it didn't work out in that system, and then we take them and we're running them through our system. Absolutely. We have partnerships with our various school districts, and frankly, while some colleges tend to concentrate on high schools, I've already spoken to superintendents, I want to start concentrating on the K-8s, because I worry that by the time students get to high school, it might be too late. And so you're going to hear more and more about Portland Community College becoming more intimately involved with the K-8 schools and seeing how we can establish partnerships. Not because, again, because it's something that we want to do because we want to feel good, because it's a very, very important initiative that we can do to prepare ourselves for the future. So Portland has a variety of things to act as a safety net for mothers who, as you described, who might be displaced or who have had some children and then can't go back into the school system. We have that, plus the dropouts. Yeah, and that's been around for some time. That predates me. And it's a very strong and viable program we have.
Jay Bloom, City Club member. Welcome, Jess. We're glad to have you in the community. You spoke about the average age of your student being age 36 and the growing number of baby boomers. Any thoughts on how the college might begin to address that over age 50 population?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. Matter of fact, I went on vacation here a week ago, and my wife says I'm kind of boring because I take these professional books to read on vacation. But it's a time I have to really think. I read a book by Mark Friedman called Prime Time, and it talks about third agers. I think that we have a tremendous opportunity in this country, and I'm formulating a concept along with my colleague Neil Negas, this is really, he needs to take the credit for this, or I want to give him the credit for this, but I think community colleges in this country can ultimately be a framework to bring those people who have retired. Let me back up. 100 years ago, people would go to school, work, retire, and die, right? Now, they do all that and live for 30 years. But after a while, you can only eat so many bonbons and watch so many, afternoon shows and play so much golf. And the point that was made in Friedman's book is people are asking the question, what's the meaning of my life? Well, I think Portland Community College and the system of community colleges across the country can help answer that question and bring those people in to be the elders of the tribe, to close the circle with the elementary schools, with the high schools, with the college, and ultimately help strengthen the fabric of the community. And that's what we intend to do. And I'll, update at 10 o'clock. Stay posted because we're going to be moving along that continuum.
Dick Brownstein, I remember the City Club. The linchpin of your address was that we have the baby boomer population moving through the system, and they reached a point, the baby boomers have, where essentially their children are in large measure educated, and I think a part of the demography that we now face is that the baby boomers' grandchildren are more and more dispersed through the country. We don't have the cellular families living around here and elsewhere as we used to have. And so that the baby boomers, it seems to me, have significantly less direct interest in the educational system than they had when they were younger, and that their own parents had. And it seems to me there's a disconnect. And my question to you is, how do you turn that into a connect?
Well, I think you have the Sun Cities that were created, as noted in the book by Friedman and other articles I've read, where people simply want to disconnect. But I submit to you, when I retire, and I know a lot of people like me that don't want to disconnect, I think the importance is, human nature is we want to stay connected. We're social. And I think one of the things that perhaps as a society we've always done, at least in my lifetime, is we've written off the mature citizen, the senior citizen. That's even a terrible term to use, as somebody who's no longer worthy of our attention. In Spanish, in English you say, I am 53 years of age. In Spanish, you say, yo tengo 53 años. I have 53 years. I'm an accumulation of 53 years. It's a very different concept. And what I'm suggesting to you is that in the initiative that Portland Community College is going to start, and hopefully will catch fire across the country, we will be able to utilize and help establish and clearly set meaning in the lives of these third agers, whether they work with with handicapped children or reformed drug addicts or high school athletes or whatever, I believe most people, and maybe that's from Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the French philosopher, my philosophy is the same, people are basically good, and they get bored watching TV every afternoon and playing golf. I submit to you, I believe that people want a meaning in their life so that when they check out someday and they take their last breath, they can say, you know what, I made a difference.
Nikki Lynch has one more question, and then we'd also like to invite our guests to ask questions as well.
Having grown up in California and seen, Prop 13 that they had down there, and the comment you made that California's made mistakes that we could learn from, maybe you could cite a few that, could alert us as we have our budget debates going on.
Well, the first one, as I mentioned already, the state of California doesn't have an economic development strategy. It has 23, 24 workforce commissions. Have you ever seen Keystone Cops movies? I mean, the goal is important, and people's heart are in the right place, but the system is disorganized. So approaching the future of this state from a systematic fashion, establishing a strategy for the 21st century, bringing the parties together, as Jim Francesconi pointed out, that is important, I think is the first thing. Secondly, how the changing populations have been dealt with. The populations were dealt with over the last 100 years as a problem. They were pronouns. They weren't seen as the developing workforce population in the state of California. That was a serious mistake, because now what's been created is a permanent, or at least a semi-permanent, underclass in the state of California. It's going to take years for that to be corrected. Serious, serious public policy mistakes. And I suggest if the business community steps up to the plate with government, with education, there are ways to avoid some of those serious mistakes, not only California, but other states have made.
Hi, Dan Findlay, City Club member. I like the sound of the initiative that would drive the resources of PCC down into the elementary levels. I'm acutely aware of the fact that in the field of technology training for teachers and in bringing technologies to students, there's a tremendous barrier to making this happen effectively in the K-8 category. High school, it's a little bit easier, but finding teachers that have the knowledge, the enthusiasm's there's no question about that, but having the knowledge and the experience to bring current and emerging technologies into the classroom so that students can be introduced to them and develop them is something that's really needed. Is this initiative going to include taking those technological resources and those technology teachers and applying what they're doing at the community college level into the elementary classroom in one way, shape, or form?
An initiative like that I've been involved with before has got to be inclusive. The whole point of a community college, which is not traditional, of working with the K-8s, is to strengthen the delivery of the instructional product, is to strengthen the human resource, which is the faculty person or the person working with the children. By nature, by definition, schools have not been rewarded for being innovative. They've simply said, you know what? So what? We're going to be innovative. And the schools that are most innovative generally go against the grain. So in our initiative, what I'm focusing on is that there's got to be the strength of training at an early age, because it's got to be tied with preparing a workforce for the 21st century so that you start thinking and acting and talking and supporting those children beginning in kindergarten. High school is too late. Preparing the workforce begins at the kindergarten level and beyond. Okay? But the resources, obviously, that's where I'm not going to go ask for a handout of $1,500. I'm going to go for some big money with corporations, say, hey, look, this is the right thing to do.
I'd like to ask a question of my own, and it goes to your comments about the aging of the baby boomers. And I guess I find myself just at the hind end of that. And I work in government, and I work with a number of government agencies, and I'm keenly aware that the vacuum of experience that's going to occur at middle management and senior management levels in government is going to be a remarkable thing as all of these people retire, and there's really not a cohort behind them, at least one that's readily identifiable. And I'm wondering, not just in community colleges, but in other forms of higher education, what is being done or what could be done to address that situation?
In 10 years from now, 89% of community college presidents, there's about 1,217 of us, 89% of those presidents are going to retire. Probably today, 40%, would you guess, Jan, of our faculty could walk out today and retire. And you exacerbate that problem as you drop into the lower grades. One of the major initiatives that probably never had occurred to people in the past was that community colleges would be involved in the preparation of teachers. That always seemed to be the realm of the four-year schools. Well, I'm here to tell you that nationally, the American Association of Community Colleges and locally, Portland Community College is intimately involved and is going to step it up in working with our four-year schools to prepare teachers for the 21st century. Not just the kids coming out of high school, but some of those third-agers to come back in to the workforce and maybe be their second or third or fourth profession, because it's critically important that we do that. Managers, yeah, besides those 89% of those presidents, vice presidents and deans. The American Association of Community Colleges has as a major national initiative, and I sit on that task force, is leadership development. I also am the president of the National Community College Hispanic Council, and our goal is to develop leaders for the 21st century, people who are preparing to be vice presidents and presidents of community college. The dilemma cuts across all agencies and all occupations. And I think that's the point. It's such a huge thing. It's so obvious, and it's right in front of us that I think we miss it because we see the little bits and pieces. We don't see that it's a daunting dilemma that sits right on the horizon in every single occupational category in this country.
We have time for one more question. But if not, I would like to thank Dr. Carreon for an extremely interesting presentation. Oh, one more? Okay.
Oh. This is the comedy show. Betsy Warrener, PCC and City Club. Thanks for the thanks, and thanks for the plug for service learning. I would love to hear more about what specifically community colleges can do in connection with the K through 8, and what are some of the specific ways that we can actually help improve education and hope and community for children. Thanks.
Well, I think there's examples. I mean, on the one hand, we can be very innovative and create some of our own ideas, but also it's a great idea to steal ideas, because there are some great ideas that are occurring all over the country. Things that I've already done in other areas. One, you can have Super Saturdays, for example, where you have computer training and language training and Spanish for kids. And you remember Megatrends? They thought the boy was nuts when he said that you need to speak 3 languages in the 21st century: English, Spanish, and computers. He wasn't so crazy, was he? But you need to add Chinese and perhaps several other languages. So having those kinds of things, not just after-school enrichment where you have graham crackers and milk, but after-school programs that are funded by the business community and by government that are seen as an investment in the future, that continue to strengthen what's already being done in the classroom and continues that in the afternoons, because you've got double-digit parents working at, 60% of the women who are married with children are working in this country. And I think So you have, in many families, both parents working, and so rather than sending kids just off to a babysitter, you create a system, you create a framework of after-school programs and Saturday programs, and I even have this crazy idea of having a family college on the weekend, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, where young families can go, a husband and wife can come to the school, take classes, and put their children in a safe a location where they can also learn during that time that the parents are there going to school. You have health camps. You can run summer camps in the summertime where you maybe tie it with basketball or soccer in the afternoon, but in the morning from 9 to 12, there are workshops on computers, there are workshops on the fine and performing arts, there are workshops on careers, but it's all tied together. And again, that's something that a college can work with elementary schools, the K through 8s to do. There's a vast number of ideas. We're only limited by our ability, one, to find the resources, and two, to get people to work with each other, and three, make sure that egos are outside the door and they don't come into the room, because turf is an ugly thing, okay? And it really convolutes discussions. And so I think ultimately, I don't want any credit for any of this stuff. When I'm on my deathbed, I want people to say, he made a difference. No name on building, no buildings named after you, but the fact that those kinds of systems were created, and that becomes a legacy, like the Chinese say that we're all tied, you know, the Chinese say they're tied to their history over 3,000 years. They see it as a continuum. And I think that's what we need to do, is create systematic, routine programs that become a part of the culture, so that when there's a budget dilemma or whatever, all of a sudden, well, cut that program from elementary schools, because that's the first thing to go. That should be the last thing to go. And the most underpaid people in the educational system, the elementary school teachers.